Difficulty finding the coronary sinus using contrast. I switched from the standard braided core to a 6 French guiding catheter, and I used to hand shape it so that it looked like this, but now there's a preformed version of this available from Merit Medical. In any event, I used this the 6 French guiding catheter when I'm having trouble finding anything to light up down in the coronary sinus area. And here you can see we've managed to engage something, and it doesn't look very promising, but we're able to inject this, and we're able to see something filling here, which turns out to be the coronary sinus, and then a fairly classic example of what the patent vein of Marshall looks like. And that's the patent vein of Marshall. The CS is over here. The question comes up is, how can you fill the coronary sinus from the right atrium like this? And I think it's important that you understand the type of injection syringe and the flow, contrast flow. And so if you use a 10 milliliter injection syringe, you can inject 120 mLs per minute and thus get good visualization, whereas if you use a regular 10 ml syringe, you get only half as much. And to emphasize the importance of the size of the lumen, if you have an 0.18 lumen, even with a good contrast injection syringe, you can only inject 54 mLs. So by using a guiding catheter with a large lumen rather than a diagnostic catheter and a contrast injection system, we're able to get adequate visualization to see that there was a patent vein of Marshall. And so we went up above and looked at the clavicular sternal junction along the subclavian, and then we were able to actually slide the glide wire directly down without actually engaging it with a vein selector, which is the usual way. So then we put a balloon catheter down and used that to track over the glide wire and used that to track the Worley sheath into the coronary sinus. And now we're doing balloon venography to see what the coronary sinus looks like, what the target veins look like, and importantly to see whether there's any drainage of the coronary sinus into the left atrium. Because if there's drainage of coronary sinus into the left atrium, then any clot formation during the implant procedure has the potential to embolize, because you're effectively working in the left atrium. But here we had pretty much total CS atresia. So we started off through the Worley sheath by advancing the standard shape vein selector inside the renal LVI subselector and tried to engage one of the side branches. And that shape didn't work so well, so we switched out the standard shape vein selector and went to the vertebral shape vein selector, and we were able to engage one of the side branches, as you see here, and then we put out 2 wires, advanced the vein selector deep into the branch, and then over that we were able to advance the subselector. So that's the subselector there. We took a picture just to be sure that we knew what we were dealing with. In case we had high thresholds, we could put bleed into a different branch. We had great thresholds, no phrenic pacing. And when you notice, we consciously tried to add extra slack because when the patient takes a deep breath, there needs to be some place for the slack to go. So the points here are that if you can't find the CS with contrast using this normal braided core, it's helpful to switch to either a hand-shaped multipurpose, an AL2 guide, a multipurpose guide, or this new modified multipurpose that's specifically designed for that. Use an injection system and then a 10 millimeter contrast injection syringe to get the best flow so that you can actually see what's going on and use full strength contrast. And you may be able to identify a patent vein of Marshall through which you can then implant.